Hello, my name is John Judge, and I'm representing Pine Hills LLC, the land development company that has been developing the Pine Hills. It's been over 20 years since Plymouth Town Meeting approved the Osmond zoning bylaw and the Pine Hills development plan, which really enabled this experiment, this mixed-use community, this innovative way of developing to take place. In short, none of this would have been possible without town meeting. What I'd like to do is give a little recap of where we are today, and then turn the presentation over to Tony Green, managing partner of Pine Hills LLC. In the most recent data produced by the town's assessing department, which was January 1, 2019, just about 24 months ago, Pine Hills had created $1.4 billion in new assessed value in Plymouth. And over recent years, we have been creating about $100 million annually in new net assessed value. Again, as of 24 months ago, Pine Hills and all of its residential and commercial development had paid the town of Plymouth $174 million in local property taxes. For those town meeting members who were here 20 years ago, when this all began, you may recall that at the time, it was estimated that at full build-out, Pine Hills would create $6.4 million in net property taxes to the town of Plymouth. That's over and above expenses, keeping in mind that the requirement of the Osmond zoning bylaw is that all utilities are private. So the roads are built privately, maintained privately, as is electric, gas, and water and sewer. Now, fast forward to today, again, as of 24 months ago, Pine Hills was contributing about $24 million in local property taxes, clearly far outpacing the $6.4 million that had been predicted 20 years ago. And Pine Hills is still growing and adding new net assessment and new net property taxes along the way each year. The town, a few years ago, contracted with John Connery and Associates to produce what was called the Connery Report. And the Connery Report looked at what the economic benefit has been to Plymouth of the Pine Hills. And at that time, the Connery Report showed that 90% of every tax dollar flows to the bottom line in terms of cash, because Pine Hills has taken care of all the utilities privately and has never been a burden to the Plymouth public school system, which we'll get into a little bit later. Pine Hills has also created about 3 dozen businesses that employ hundreds of full and part-time workers here at the Pine Hills. And the home builders, 11 home builders here at Pine Hills, have been each year employing hundreds of building trades workers, from plumbers to electricians to framers to plasterers and painters and the like. So we feel as if the Pine Hills has been very much part of the economic development engine of Plymouth over the past 2 decades. With that little update as to where we've come to this point, I would like to turn the presentation over now to Tony Green, who is the managing partner of Pine Hills LLC.
Hi, I'm Tony Green, managing partner of the Pine Hills. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to Plymouth Town Meeting about the 2 warrant articles that are before you. As we near the end of this more than 20-year journey, we're appreciative of the chance the town meeting gave us for the Pine Hills to even be here. The 2 zoning articles before you, one changes the zoning in 2 respects related to contiguity and the number of homes. And then the second article takes those 2 changes, should they be approved, and changes the development plan to reflect those same 2 changes. So to put all of that in context, we'll go to a plan so you can to show what we're describing. This is the Pine Hills. This is Route 3 right here, and what was exit 3, now exit 7, right here. This is the Village Green commercial district where the Blueberry Muffin and Mamma Mia's and Mirbeau in the market are. This is Clark Road, turning to Beaver Dam Road, Old Sandwich Road, unpaved, running through Pine Hills from here south, all the way down to Ellisville. This is the Great Island neighborhood, Great Island Pond. And here is existing town-owned open space in gray. This is Briggs, the south piece. This is Briggs, the north piece. This is the Manomet landfill, also owned by the town. And you can see how Briggs North and Briggs South don't touch. There's this 104.8 acre piece in the middle. And that is the subject of these zoning, part of the subject of these zoning articles. Should town meeting choose to change the definition of contiguity so that this 104 acres would be added to Osmond, it would be forever protected as open space, and Pine Hills would have 104 new permits to build within the buildable areas already determined by town meeting elsewhere in Osmond. So the actual wording of the change in zoning is in your packet and also on the screen. The first piece of the change of zoning is amending Clause 1 in the definition of Osmond in Section 207-3B. This is the area where land that is contiguous is defined. Today, land that is across Route 3 or across town-owned roads is considered contiguous. This zoning article would make it so that land that is connected by town-owned open space would also be considered contiguous. This is what would make the 104.8 acres contiguous to the rest of Osmond. The second change in the zoning article is amending the same section, 207.3, but table 13, which is intensity of uses. And what we are asking is to reduce the number of planned retirement by 149 and to increase limited occupancy community by 149. Planned retirement homes are required for one occupant over the age of 55 to live in the home, and there is no limit on the number of bedrooms or where the bedrooms may be. Limited occupancy community homes have a maximum of 3 bedrooms, and the master bedroom must be on the first floor, except in the Village Green district. So no increase in the total number of homes, but a swap of type from planned retirement to limited occupancy community. On the screen and in your packets is a page titled Planned Retirement. There are 920 planned retirement permits with a 55+ deed restriction, which means that at least one occupant living in the home must be over the age of 55. All but 149 planned retirement permits have been sold and occupied to date. In 2001, there were approximately 0.42 school-age children per household in Plymouth. And in the presentation to town meeting back then, we made the same assumption for future homes at the Pine Hills, which would have projected more than 1,200 students being added to the system. For the current school year, per the Plymouth School Department, there are 44 students enrolled in the Plymouth Public Schools who live at the Pine Hills. The cost per student for those 44 students is $17,548, so that the total is $772,000, which is obviously a fraction of the nearly $24 million in annual property tax revenue from the Pine Hills. It is this low student population that is one of the main reasons why Pine Hills is so tax positive. There are fewer kids going to school. The conversion to limited occupancy community dwellings results in additional restrictions to those permits. They would be limited to 3 bedrooms per home, and master bedrooms are required on the first floor, except for the homes in the Village Green district. These restrictions do not apply to planned retirement dwellings.
The benefits of these warrant articles would be as follows. Increased property tax benefits to Plymouth The additional 104 LOC homes projected to add over $1 million in annual property tax revenue to Plymouth, with minimal impact on town services and the school system. It also would benefit by creating a contiguous open space, expanding the town-owned Briggs Conservation Land into one continuous area consisting of over 878 acres of permanently protected natural open space at no cost to the town of Plymouth. Open space protection. Pine Hills LLC will request consideration by the Wildlands Trust, which holds the conservation restriction on the 200-acre reserve land parcel along Long Pond Road, to also hold the conservation restriction on the 104 acres with an appropriate stewardship endowment funded by Pine Hills LLC. Wellhead protection. A conservation restriction on the 104 acres would protect the potential wellhead site on abutting town land should the town of Plymouth pursue a potable water source on the Briggs parcel at some point in the future. And finally, affordable housing. To date, the Pine Hills Affordable Housing Charitable Trust has funded qualified affordable housing projects in Plymouth totaling nearly $500,000 in grants and contributions. Pine Hills LLC would increase the contribution to the trust from the current $250 per home to $1,000 per home for the 104 additional LLC homes that would be permitted if the proposed development plan is approved by town meeting. Approval of the warrant articles would increase funding for the trust and therefore expand affordable housing opportunities in Plymouth. Thank you. I have a vivid memory of 20 years ago when we were before town meeting, and after the vote, we were standing out in the lobby of the old Plymouth North High School auditorium. And we recall folks coming out and basically putting their finger right in our chest and basically saying, "We trusted you, now do the right thing." We have held that memory throughout the 20 years that we have been here in Plymouth, knowing the personal nature and the commitment that we had to try to bring something new and different and economically valuable to Plymouth. And that has really guided us through these past 20 years. We're very thankful for town meeting's support at that time. We ask for your consideration again for these warrant articles, but it really has been town meeting that has given us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity to present to Plymouth Town Meeting. This process began more than 20 years ago, and the relationship that we have had with the parts of town, the town of Plymouth that function with us on a day-to-day basis have been terrific. But frankly, all of it couldn't have happened without Plymouth Town Meeting deciding that it was worth taking a risk and approving an idea where development would occur in a different way, where only 30% of the land would be built on, that for every acre that was built on, 2 acres would be preserved. And we appreciate that opportunity, and it has been the honor of a lifetime. We appreciate your consideration on these 2 zoning articles. Thank you.